Hi there, great to see you again. Okay, so one of the most critical interpersonal skills you can learn, especially in high stakes situations, is to speak less. Now, I realize this coming from a person who's always encouraging you to speak up more. This might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but in fact, this is all part of the storytelling strategy. For example, let's see. Well, I have a small confession to make. I've never had a real job interview. That's weird, right? I mean, I guess I was interviewed when I got hired at the Outback Steakhouse by Adolfo, but he was so handsome I hardly remember any of the rest of it. But as far as interviews go, that's about it. I say that because most of the time what might have been considered an interview ended up being more like a conversation and less like an actual interview. And here's one of my favorite situations. It was when I was going in for a big interview. It was for a serious job, and I was pretty young. And by some stroke of luck, I followed my instinct in the interview and started by telling a story about growing up in the Midwest. Now, that story opened up some sort of floodgate, I guess, and the man who was interviewing me also spent time in the Midwest in his youth, and my short story had inspired about 30 minutes worth of his story. And I honestly, I don't think I said more than 10 words after that story. But at the end of the interview, he said, "Well, that went great. I really think you'll be a good fit." And I was hired the next day. Now, I tell you this because I recently received an email from a gentleman who was having an important meeting with a VP of his department. And it was for a really large company. And it was a meeting he'd been trying to secure for months, and now he was finally on the VP's calendar, and he really wanted to make the most of it. He asked if I had any suggestions, and I told him what I'll tell you now. Anytime you enter a high-stakes interaction, it's best to speak less. Now, the question is, how do you get the other person talking? If you're not saying anything, somebody has to be saying something. Otherwise, there's going to be a whole lot of awkward silence. But how do you open up their floodgates? Well, you tell a short story. Now, again, that might seem counterintuitive because I just told you to speak less. But here's the difference. Story begets story. I'll say it again. Story begets story. If you tell one of your stories, the other person will likely reciprocate by telling one of theirs. Then all you have to do is keep them on their storytelling roll and enjoy getting to know them better. It's even better if you happen to know one of the person's interests. Do your research in advance. Find a topic they're passionate about, then tailor your story to their interests. Trust me, the more they talk in the meeting, the better they will perceive the meeting went, just like me and in the job interview. Now, I should tell you that shortly after I sent the gentleman my suggestion, I heard back from him. And he said the meeting went great. There was no awkward silences, and he was able to build instant rapport through sharing his story and then sitting back and listening to the story of the VP. Even better, he heard through the grapevine that this VP is actually actively seeking available positions for my guy to move up. Awesome, right? So, whether it's in an interview, an important meeting, or heck, even if it's an important first date, tell your story. But not for the sake of the story itself, but because telling yours will likely lead to them telling theirs. And then you get to be the listener, which means you'll speak less. I hope you give this strategy a try. Pass this video on to someone you know who could use it. And remember, you really are just one story from greatness. I sure hope you choose to tell yours. We'll talk to you soon.